And start. Whew. Welcome back. Oh, we got, we're here. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Mirage. I've in the past had some ideas for the build lab streams, whatever we're calling these now. And I want to try to hold to them. So I'll try harder this time to keep to format. It makes it easier for me because then when I timestamp the video, it's a lot more formulaic. You know, I kind of know what things I'm going to include. You know, there always being an intro segment at the beginning that's like 5 minutes, and then there's, you know, explaining the abilities, and we added explaining the augments and etc. I'm going to make some more changes, but we can talk about those later. This time I'll try to do it, you know, pretty lockstep and do the same segments in like sort of the same order. We're also sort of gearing up to do this in Genshin Impact as well a little bit in the next few months. I'm very busy right now, but I have a lot of ideas. This is the kind of worker I am. There's a brainstorm, and the storm is coming. You can't, you know, it's not up to me that I'm gonna have all the ideas right now. Like, you either take them or leave them. I can either do a lot of stuff all at once or lose the ideas. So yeah, if you think that way, if you related to what I just said, write stuff down. You don't have to remember where it is. Just the act of writing it down will help bind it in your memory. And you may remember where it is. You know, if you have one big document, I do one like every season or so, every 5 to 6 months, 3 to 4 months sometimes, it depends, and label them like the year and some pithy thing that I'll remember about which one it is, you know. And then I just dump anything I can't think to organize better. If I don't know where else to put it, I just put it in there. At the worst, you could just read that document, and in 5 to 10 minutes, you will find the thing you wanted to do, you know? It's great. You really should do that if that's not something you already do, if you can relate to that thing I said. Anyway, Mirage. Mirage has been anticipated in the sense that I have often said that Mirage is my kind of least favorite frame. That became sort of a meme of its own that was never really intended to be a very serious statement. But I don't like a lot of things about Mirage's design, and I can, of course, explain what they are. So we shall. Yeah, and we'll do the usual. We'll talk over build stuff and try out some ideas, and yeah, we'll do the thing. Not too much to say about this one, actually. What might have been a lot of fanfare for the long-time audience. I don't actually have that much to say. So yeah, we're gonna not worry about it too much. I'm just gonna get started. Asymptomatic, welcome back. And Aujku, welcome back. Pistol Whip and Rainmaker, welcome back. And Epsilon, thank you for the follow. Welcome aboard. I was playing with a few folks right before the stream just to quickly test out an idea that I had with Mirage a long time ago, but I haven't thought about Mirage in a while. And so I encountered a few folks who were interested in the show. So Epsilon, and I believe it was also Slippery Slim Six Slippery. The name was close to that. Here we can pull it up because they've got that feature where slightly sick. What I said was gross. Sick Slippery, that's a nasty name. Slightly sick, it's just how I feel some of the time. Slightly sick and Epsilon. I did a quick Requiem relic with the two of them, and I was recognized, so I just thought I'd say hi. It happens a lot, and people are usually really nice. You know, I think that being widely known is really bad, but I have to say, in the mostly Warframe circle that people have recognized me, like at TennoCon and stuff in the past, I've always had a really pleasant experience. You all have always been very warm, welcoming, pleasant. Some of the most fun I've had hanging out with other adults ever in my life was at TennoCon with mostly just like people from the audience. a couple creators as well. Joey, Xeno, if you're familiar with Xenogellion. I've never known which one he prefers. But anyway, yeah. So just to say, Epsilon, welcome aboard, but also just all of you, I'm thankful for having had really pleasant experiences with you all as a community when I encounter you in the wild. And I will be trying to go to TennoCon in person this year. So if you go to TennoCon this year in person, I have every intention of being there. So yeah, I hope I'll get to see some of you there. Not sponsored, by the way. Although Digital Extremes, I did a panel on one TennoCon, and that was fun. I had a good time. I thought it went pretty well too. I would totally do that again if they asked. But they probably won't, which is understandable, because there's a lot of people who've been in the partner program a long time that have never done, anything. Anyway, okay. Done enough of an intro segment. I'm putting it off long enough. Mirage. We gotta make sure we have disabled Xeneric. We found out in a previous one that this Xeneric node that says allows abilities to be cast without energy or shields, but requires 60 seconds to recharge. This works while you're not in missions and makes abilities energy costs go away. Very frustrating. Anyway, for my specific task, it doesn't really matter for anyone else. Yeah, so Mirage. I don't think there's that much I wanna ramp up to. Let's just talk about Mirage, but because because there's been a lot of fanfare to me saying I really dislike Mirage, I would like to explain why. It's not very complicated. It's a design thing. It's mostly a game designer complaint. It's not very much a a gameplay thing. I enjoy Hall of Mirrors, which is basically just multi-shot. I enjoy a bunch of multiples of my weapon as much as the next person, right? I'm going to be showing you an explosive Ledgermain build later that we'll talk about it later. It's really mostly kind of a ripple out effect from Eclipse, kind of Hall of Mirrors, but Eclipse. So this will be a good way to introduce the abilities as well. Basically, the problem I have with Mirage's kit is that it's unreliable defenses in a way that I don't think really works in Warframe. So Eclipse, for example, says, standing in light, Mirage deals heavy damage, while the shadows make Mirage difficult to track and even harder to hurt. When you're in the dark, you get 95% with only a little bit of strength damage reduction. That's a lot. However, let me ask you, when you're in a mission, where are the shadows? Where is it dark versus where is it light? I just don't think Warframe visually is a game that has that. Now, in the little movie, you can see that they're in a place in one of the newer tile sets where it is very obvious, this is light, this is dark. A lot of missions, one, it just is light or dark everywhere. Two, many older tiles, it's not anywhere near this clear, this well lit, where it's light and dark. Three, it depends on your machine. If the graphics are less clear, it may be harder to see, where is light and where is dark. And four, I found it to be somewhat buggy. Sometimes you stand in a place that, how is this not dark compared to where I just was? And you simply do not get the damage reduction. The problem here for me is simply that this is a layer of defense that will fail you periodically. If you rely on this, you'll be happily tanking along, but then you'll set one toe into the light and suddenly take 20 times as much damage and die, right? And in Warframe, because it's a horde shooter, if you're in a survival and you're assailed by enemies nonstop for 5 minutes, it only takes putting your toe in the light, 4 or 5 times. You're gonna die every single time it happens on a Steel Path mission. I just don't think that this type of defense is a good fit for Warframe. It doesn't, both from the aesthetic perspective and anyway. I also have a suggestion, since we complained about this for 3 minutes, for what you could do to this ability. There have been many suggestions like this over the years, and I don't like them. The most common one is to make it a toggle. Just let the player pick whether it's light or dark. That's easy, but it doesn't embrace the design at all. They want this theme of refracting light or like environmental illusions. That's cool. That's fine. You can do that. You don't have to just make it a toggle. Just make it be that Mirage's other abilities make light. Perhaps Prism creates light near it, and you can, put it away from you or keep it close to you. That could make Prism's augment have an interesting consequence. Sleight of hand, the little things you make could be light sources. So if you stand near one, you get some light. Again, that's not perfect as is, but the point is that Mirage has a whole kit of luminous thing-generating abilities. I feel like it wouldn't be that difficult to imagine a version of Mirage that would be able to generate clearly light and clearly dark locations using her abilities. Would that require a lot more work? Yeah, but I'm just saying that this concept doesn't need to be like excised from Warframe. It's not like you can't do the concept of like in the light and in the dark. I just don't think it's a good idea to do it environmentally in Warframe. And I think a better way to do that would be to make Mirage's kit generate like the light and the dark. Now, of course, Eclipse is only one ability. Hall of Mirrors also gives you duplicates, and these will draw fire from you, but not all of the time. So again, as soon as an enemy just happens to shoot you, they don't shoot the doppelgangers 100% of the time. When an enemy happens to shoot you, you're going to die. Yeah, you have 2 layers, but you're not going to know when Eclipse goes down and then Hall of Mirrors, you basically just randomly get hit sometimes. I just don't think that the ability costs are still gone, so I'm trying to get them back. There it is. I just don't think that that's a comfortable form of survivability in Warframe. Really, to the point, you can't really do anything about that. So it puts you as the player in a situation where you are going to die. You're no safer than you were before. You just don't know when you're no safer than you were before. Now, a lot of players really like Mirage, so what's going on? Like, if what I'm saying is true, don't they just spontaneously die all the time and then nobody would like this character? Well, shield gating exists. And I also think that for a lot of people, like when you're in a 4-person squad, Warframe is very different than if you happen to be going solo. You may not lose your shield gate often enough. Yeah, like if you only get hit once in a blue moon with these defenses up, your shield gate might be enough that you won't die. So anyway, whatever. It's not the end of the world or anything, but that's what I don't like. I just think that type of defense in Warframe is bad. It's not even that I don't like it. It literally is bad, but it just isn't that big a deal. I just feel like, why? There's like 50 Warframes. Why I gotta play this one? And you kind of don't, right? You could use the Helminth system to just give yourself a good defensive ability. Although Mirage does have, and this very rarely matters, I think, but for once in this series, I'm going to point out that Mirage has notably low base health, which does matter in this case, because if you replace the defenses, you may have difficulty having a large enough like raw health pool for a defense you add to really do anything, You could use something like Pillage would be what I would recommend. Use something that gives you a ton of shields, like up front, over shields, and then you get the same amount no matter what frame you are. But surviving with health, I think, is not ideal as Mirage. Normally wouldn't be a big deal. I just think on this particular Warframe, it adds insult to injury with the defense thing. Anyway, on the bright side, Hall of Mirrors gives you copies of your projectiles. Now, I forget exactly how this calculates, but basically the 2 copies in the front, nearest theoretical, also fire your weapon, and they do a % of your damage output. I would imagine, in the description it says 20, and then it's been modded up with strength to 47.6%, probably based on strength. So they start at 20% of your weapon's damage, and then you go up to, however, based on your strength, you can mod it up. Now, keep in mind, they do everything your weapon does. So it hits in the same area, it does the same status output, the raw damage is a little bit lower. That, I don't think that matters that much a lot of the time, if the weapon has a decent area of effect. Now, the copies will often miss if it's just a gun. I think area of effect weapons are a good fit here. I also want to note that, and we'll talk about this more later, if the weapon has an alternate fire, my experience has been, at least with the Trumna it does work, but with most alternate fires, the copies will also fire the alternate fire of the weapon. I'm not sure that their kills charge it. You know, these Entrati weapons get charged by killing stuff. I don't think the copies getting kills charges this. I don't really know. But they will fire a duplicate of the effect. And most of those charge weapons do ludicrous overkill damage. Like, it does not matter that it does only 50% of the damage. You're basically just increasing the blast radius in which no matter what you hit, definitely 100% absolutely dies. So this ability is very good, is I guess all I'm trying to say. The two doppelgangers in the back just draw fire. It's only the two in the front that shoot. I'll catch up on chat just a little bit more, and then, yeah, we'll talk about Sleight of Hand, one of the weirdest abilities in the game, and then Prism. Also one of the weirdest abilities in the game. Mirage is weird and really old. So that's weird. Chris, welcome back. You said, what is shield gating? Yeah, that's important to this discussion if people don't know. Chris, shield gating is a phenomenon in Warframe and a kind of game design idea in general. The idea is that if a unit in a game has like a layer of, let's say, shields and then a layer of health under the shields, many games have a mechanic by which you cannot breach that shield layer with a single hit. So in Warframe, the way it works is that if you have any amount of shield, you can take infinite damage and you will not die. You'll just lose all your shield. You also get a brief invulnerability, very, very brief, if you lose only a little shield, but more based on how much shield you lose. That doesn't usually matter in my experience. Then you will, you know, die to the next hit if it does infinite damage. Thus, if you regenerate shields in Warframe, you become incredibly hard to kill. Red Drone, thank you for the Prime sub for 7 months. Red Drone, it feels like just a few moments ago that you Prime subbed for 6 months. Maybe your sub comes back around now. But anyway, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. This is how I get paid, so I really appreciate the support. Welcome back. We were just talking about shield gating. An important topic to Mirage, I said, because Eclipse and Hall of Mirrors giving you unreliable defenses, you may be saved by your shield gate, but you have to know what that is. If you get a shield regeneration in Warframe, the current version of shield gating makes you pretty much immortal, which by the way, I think is really bad. I wish that would be changed. I don't like how they've done shield gating. I think that the point of one-shot protection or a shield gate is so that the player has a fair chance to respond in games where we've decided that's important. Warframe is a game with a lot of visual noise, so having a mechanic in the game that makes the player not just immediately die when some enemy over there fires a hit scan weapon that hits you with no travel time, and then you just die, you know, that could feel bad. And so having frames have some mechanic by which you get one chance to kind of get out of the way and solve the problem, I think is good. And shield gating is I hate to be this blunt about it, but honestly, I think just kind of very lazy way to implement that. It does end up working in Warframe because basically every frame that doesn't have shields is so tanky normally that it doesn't really matter. So for example, people often quip that Inaros, this is getting pretty far away from Mirage, but whatever, it's important for Mirage, so we got to talk about it. You know, Inaros has no shield. And so people often quip that Inaros is the squishiest Warframe or whatever, but not really though. If you play the Steel Path and mod your Inaros with damage reduction and health, just like normal, just like you would on other frames, you're not going to get one-shotted by stuff. As evidence, I offer my thousands of hours of experience doing that. You know, there are other examples like Nidus has no shields, but has a mechanic that literally revives him, and he's very tanky too. Nearly every frame for whom it would matter does have shields in Warframe. So shield gating is a very easy, kind of elegant way to make Warframes usually not get one-shotted and have a way they can get it back. I just personally think the problem is that it doesn't reward having a lot of shields. Pretty much nothing in Warframe rewards having a lot of shields. It's best to just get tiny amounts of shields like over and over and over again. For example, Gogglefront, you said, I think I got a handle on what shield gating is. Now, how do you actually use it? Well, you don't have to do anything for it to activate, But if you want to abuse it, if that's what you're asking, basically I would say the long and the short of shield gating being a problem the way it's currently implemented is if you regenerate shields, because your shield gate comes back, you know, you get one shield every, you know, millisecond or whatever, then you can survive infinite damage basically every time that happens. Something like Arcane Aegis here, for example, they changed this, I believe, but it used to just regenerate, you know, your shields for 12 seconds, no matter what was happening. You could be taking damage or whatever. That makes you unkillable, basically, unless you take toxin damage, which bypasses shields or whatever. There's still a couple places where it's a kind of a problem. Protea has an ability where you can give people a little shield satellite that gives them shield regen. That gives you shield regen in a way that makes you, again, like more or less completely unkillable. You can give them to allies. It's just the way it's implemented right now. I guess if you had like no time, it's a very good way relative to the time it must have taken. You know, like you don't have to add any new systems. You use shields, which are already here. So I guess I can't be unfair. Like from a game design perspective, there's clearly some merit to the way shield gating was implemented. But the problem is that it creates a lot of really annoying edge cases where you can't do certain things with shields because everything that interacts with shields at all breaks the game in half like a toothpick. That's my main complaint. So Gogglefront, the two main things that come to mind are, yeah, that Protea ability. And the other thing is the Augur mod cycle. If you want to play Mirage and use Eclipse and Hall of Mirrors as defensive effects, you might consider using some Augur mods. And these are great because they're really easy to include in a lot of builds. You get them for basically all the normal power stats, so it's easy to say, you know, I want a bit of range, I want a bit of duration, I'll just put on the Augur mod. And then whenever you cast an ability, you get a little bit of shield. It can restore overshields too. This means that every time you cast an ability, if you have no shield right now, let's say you just got hit and your shield gate broke, but your shields haven't recharged yet, if you cast any ability, you get some back. You get a tiny amount of shield, but it doesn't matter. That makes you survive infinite damage with the way shield gating works. So that's the main way I would interact with shield gating. And I don't think that's a bad idea on Mirage. In fact, if we could easily find a space, I would be keen to put this in for the range anyway. Again, I think the best thing about this is that Augur Reach especially, and sometimes Augur Message, I would often have used anyway. It's not, you know, I'm not putting myself out to get these mods. Anyway, shield gating, I hope that helps a little bit. This is getting pretty far away from Mirage, but that's okay. It's important to talk about because Hall of Mirrors and Eclipse being unreliable damage reduction is very heavily mitigated by shield gating once you understand it. An Augur mod or two, and just knowing that that happens. For example, you can see that I have Rolling Guard on my Mirage. With this, I would roll when you see your shield gate pop. The game does a nice audio cue. You get a little, I don't know how to do it, but, and the screen flashes red, I think. I've played Warframe for so long, I don't really know. Anyway, wait for your shield gate to pop and then roll, and then you'll be invulnerable for the time you're waiting for your shields to naturally recharge. And that gives you a nice window to stay alive. That can be very effective, don't get me wrong. I just personally often play Warframe to relax or while distracted, and that method of surviving would get me killed in those situations. So just something to keep in mind. Pingers, thank you for gifting a tier 2 sub to the Wesky and a tier 2 sub to Zalveris. Pingers, thank you very much. That's awfully generous. And welcome back, by the way. I really appreciate it. Welcome back. We're going to continue the ability thing. This has been like the longest ability summary segment ever, but to be fair, Mirage has pretty complicated abilities, not least of which Sleight of Hand. This ability says, booby trap nearby objects while conjuring an irresistible jewel which bursts with radial blind when touched in darkness or a radial explosion in light. Conjure multiple smaller jewels with the help of Hall of Mirrors. What? Okay, booby trap nearby objects is 4 words. the explanation for what the booby trapping is not 4 words. We're not actually going to go through the entire thing. Basically, what you need to know is that it turns like loot lockers and like interactables in the mission, a whole bunch of stuff, just does bad things to enemies. This ability more or less is just like random funhouse bad things happen to enemies in an area. That being said, much like Hall of Mirrors and Eclipse, it's gonna do something. I just don't think it's gonna do what you want reliably. That's really the only problem. You should really look this ability up in the wiki if you want to know exactly what it does. I honestly don't think it's a very good use of our time to go through every little thing. But yeah, you do sabotage lots of different types of pickups and interactables and stuff. And we are going to talk later about Explosive Ledgermane, which is a riff on this that I think is very, very powerful. Finally, Prism, last but not least. You fire a laser ball that travels through the air. The little movie is very helpful for this. And fires lasers at enemies. Big radius. It costs a lot of energy to maintain if you don't build a lot of efficiency. Prism is definitely last and least in my eyes. Well, to be fair, it's not least in detail, but yes, I don't think this is the world's greatest ability. The lasers do pretty modest damage output. It does have pretty good range. A lot of Mirage's abilities have pretty good range. But yeah, it costs a lot of energy to maintain as well. I think one of the biggest drawbacks of this ability is that it's got a duration anyway. It's already got a duration. So right now, this one, the base duration is 12 seconds. I had it down to 8.7 because I have negative duration, right? So the duration is 8.7 seconds. The drain per second is also higher because I have negative duration. Now, this means that I just get the lasers for I can't choose to do it for longer without recasting it, you know? That also compounds the problem of negative efficiency because I have to pay for it again to restart it. I can't just keep channeling it. It's a costly ability that doesn't do a ton of damage, but it does have very, very good range, and you can explode it to do a blind with very, very good range. And this blind is reliable, unlike the sleight of hand blind. So yeah, passive. Sliding lasts 85% longer, and acrobatic maneuvers are 50% faster. This is very good for speedrunning in some weird cases, but I think in normal gameplay it doesn't matter that much. In fact, I think those maneuvers being quicker is often not ideal for a normal player. That sometimes feels a little wonky to me. But you should look at the speedrunning community's use of that effect because it's fascinating. Oh boy, it's been 27 minutes and we're now on to augments because we're talking about Mirage today. So buckle up. We're not, boy howdy, if you thought that was a lot. Let's start with Explosive Ledgermane before my brain erupts into blood and gore. This is a sleight of hand augment. So this is the one that booby traps everything. This augment makes it so ammo and orb, like health and energy orb pickups, become mines that do a base 1000 damage with 100% status chance. The damage is affected by strength, but the status chance is not. The type of pickup determines the elemental damage type. So, you know, I don't remember, but basically it would be like, you know, a health orb might be heat and an energy orb might be electricity or something. I don't remember specifically, but 100% status chance. If you get that on, you know, heat or toxin, and enemies are, you know, going to be taking some significant either armor reduction or damage over time if they have shields, and the base damage, that's quite high. The explosive radius is also huge, like really, really big, unless the mod is doing something weird and that's not the normal explosive radius. Let's see what the wiki has to say about the explosive radius, just for my sanity. But I believe it does have like a very, very long explosion range. Aha, my intuition was correct. Explosion radius is affected by range. That is the range you see. But the triggering radius is not affected by range. That was my memory. We'll talk about this more later because I actually think this is pretty good in some unique situations, and it allows Mirage to do something that is deeply uncommon in Warframe, which is leave a lot of damage potential in a location she has already left, or like do enormous ability-based damage to enemies she cannot see, like that are not even really very nearby, like not close by, like that are not even in the same room, you know? I think this ability can be very good, and it's quite unique. I think this is a very unique effect. But you should know that enemies do have to basically walk on the mine. It then does damage in a very large area, but enemies do need to like pretty much touch it for it to go off, in my memory anyway. We'll test this. I'm pretty sure we'll have time today. So the radius, yeah, it's really good. Build range, in my opinion. But yeah, you want choke points is where this conversation is going. And it's definitely not going to stop there. Pinger says, are we building up to Greedy Pole Mirage? Oh, yes. I mean, I think so. I think that's delightful. Okay, other augments. Total Eclipse. Eclipse augment. While active, allies within 15 meters benefit from Eclipse. Somebody earlier said they think... Fingers, you said the Total Eclipse augment, in your opinion, solves the problem of some of the problems of Eclipse. But it does require trust in the 4 randos in your public group to take advantage of a buff. Yeah, if you wanted the damage buff, you could replace the Eclipse with something else. Technically, you could use Total Eclipse, and then maybe your allies could get the damage buff. Every time I've mentioned Eclipse in the past, I've felt the need to point out that in the past there have been a few weird ways to force light or dark, a weapon ability. I think an ephemera at one point counted as giving you always the light effect, but they've only ever forced light, and historically the developers have removed those abilities, which I think is fine, because I want them to completely rework this ability. But I don't think it is a good response to say, you can guarantee that you can have it be light, like by using this one weird trick. Like, historically, that has been removed from the game. So if that is currently possible, I'm not sure I would rely on that being possible in the future. That's all. Okay, Prism Guard, I want to talk about this one next. It says Prism Augment. Prism follows above Mirage. Duration changed to 4 seconds. Now, I kind of forget something about this, so we're going to check really quick. What was weird to me about this, which I don't think they have changed, is that you do still pay the duration cost, the drain per second. It just makes the duration shorter, much shorter, still affected by duration, and it's, yeah, like right alongside you. Now, at base, this isn't that good. What I've seen be effective with this, if you're interested, is being very fast, like just moving incredibly quickly. What you can do is have Prism Guard on your shoulder as a turret that will auto-target things way faster than you would be able to mentally, and then just build a bunch of like parkour velocity and speed mods and stuff, and just fly through like a low-level exterminate. Imagine something like that. This is one of the ways you can do that really fast if you want to. I just don't think you need to do that often, but yeah, it's sure. I think this is kind of cool. I wish the duration wasn't so low. The ability already costs an ungodly amount of energy. Like, why does it need to have limited duration? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Hall of Malevolence. This is a Hall of Mirrors augment. It says the damage of your doppelgangers is increased by 5% every time you kill an enemy. My brain is telling me that there's a cap that I don't remember. Hall of Malevolence. The damage increase per kill can only stack a maximum of 10 times, says the wiki. At full rank, the doppelgangers will deal 50% more damage at 10 stacks. It is not affected by ability strength. So this is noteworthy in that if you dump your strength for some reason, I'm not sure what you're doing in Mirage where that would be a good idea, but let's say you could use this and get good damage on your doppelgangers without much strength. But it's also not affected by strength. So for example, on this build, I already have about 50% damage on my doppelgangers. Adding 50% is still pretty good. I'm not sure it like really matters that much, but it's definitely got diminished value compared to if I'd built less strength, right? It's fine. I think you'll find that the weapons and situations where Hall of Mirrors is really good, I'm not certain you will need more damage if that's really going strong. Like gas damage, for example. I'm just not convinced that you would care about doing more damage. But I mean, if you know, you know. I mean, you want to do more damage, then it certainly does do that. Let's catch back up on chat, and then we'll talk about this build a little bit, because I think it's good. And then, yeah, I want to hear what you all have for suggestions. We'll talk about Helminth abilities, we'll break, and then we'll play it a bit. I'll see you later, Gogglefront. Thanks for tuning in. I'm really happy to hear that you popped in from the YouTube. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And the support is really flattering too. This is attempting to be my full-time job. We're going to be really ramping up video production in the next couple of months, so I'm looking forward to having you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the support. We're going to bring back something that a lot of you requested very heavily, which is things that exist. I was rewatching them the other day, and I cringed at the way I used to talk, but I did that because I was trying to figure out how I wanted to talk on the internet, and it sure did work. I just don't like how it was then. Those videos did very well for being not that good, so I'm pretty confident I can do better than that, sure. Good stuff. I was recently also playing around with speech to text for recordings. Like, you can have your recording software just put up text that is the words you're saying as you say it, without editing or anything, like without doing anything, basically. Amazing. Like, it's not perfect, but it works pretty good. I don't know. I guess we already have that on YouTube, and like TikTok has a feature that does that. Anyway, cool stuff. So I hope I have something good for you in the next few months, because, well, I'm gonna have a lot of things for you. I hope you like them. Just to be clear, Gogglefront, that doesn't mean I would replace my speaking with like just text. The only reason I would use that would be, for example, for YouTube Shorts, Things That Exist was a 1 minute long video series about basically just highlighting things that were weird. It was limited to Warframe, but it's build ideas, so I'm going to be doing it in lots of games as I bring it back in the next few months. So I might do like Explosive Ledger Main, and I would say like, this is a weird augment that, you know, it's got a bunch of numbers, but the unique thing is that it lets you do damage to enemies that are not very near you, and concentrated on an item that is pretty unique, on loot, you know. I think they will fit very well as YouTube Shorts, and I'm quite confident I can do them better than I did in the past. I have a lot of confidence that that will be good, and a lot of you said, to my surprise, when I asked you what kind of videos you wanted, a lot of you, to my surprise, said those were your favorite things I've made. I don't know what to say. Like, I'm happy you really liked them. I would definitely enjoy making those more. I guess I was cynical that they wouldn't like do well or something, but the more I thought about it, the more I felt like, yeah, it's actually perfect. We're talking a lot about things that aren't Mirage during this, which might give you the feeling that I'm subconsciously avoiding talking about Mirage. But anyway, yeah, Goggle, it would, just to clarify, it would only be for a video format where it might be advisable to have the text be on the screen too. I've been playing around with it a little bit, and I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't think I'm going to end up choosing to make a like YouTube short, you know, Things That Exist build tool highlight videos that also have text automatically on them. I kind of feel like the closed caption function that websites have is enough for people that want it, and I don't think it's better for people that are comfortable using the audio. So I don't think I'm going to do that. But anyway, the YouTube automated captions are not bad. They're not any better or worse than the ones I was able to generate. So I don't know. I think it's fine. But I was considering doing that. Anyway, let's just talk about build stuff. Let's talk about this. Now, I already see a lot of people very excited to recommend Helminth abilities for this build, but I want to quickly demonstrate what it does, just so people have a visual in their mind. I'm going to do that using Elite Sanctuary Onslaught, because it's quick, and I think you need to see this as soon as possible so we can actually discuss it. Unfortunately, this means we're going to have to leave our squad in the lurch pretty early, but that's how Elite Sanctuary Onslaught almost always goes. So Explosive Ledgerman is going to turn loot pickups on the ground into mines. Like we talked about before, they have a very big explosion radius where they do damage, but they basically must be touched by enemies to explode. This means that having a ton of enemies around, but there's choke points, or you can be pretty much guaranteed enemies will step on them. That's the sort of most powerful or ideal situation for this ability, for this effect. And Elite Sanctuary Onslaught is definitely one of the places where that's good. I think that a lot of normal Warframe missions, like mobile defense or defense, survival, you could choose the Camp 1 area, for example. Those are mission types that are compatible with that ability. Like, they will be, strong there. I mean, you could use it wherever you want, but... so you see I've done that, and I've converted those pickups into bombs, and you see that enemy spawned and died, and now that enemy just randomly died. Those little glittery things, you see those? It might be kind of difficult. Okay, well, you're not going to see them anymore. You see enemies are just randomly dying? Like, geez, look at all these little mines. All those little sparkles are the mines. And so there it is. Enemies will periodically walk into them, explode, and do tons of damage to nearby enemies. As you're seeing, the weird damage numbers going off in locations I am nowhere near. All that toxin damage that just happened, for example. And oftentimes as loot accumulates, you can recast the ability again and make mines right on top of enemies that were already suffering from mine damage, which keeps it going. Now, I do think there are a few problems. One problem is that you need to not pick up the loot. Some of it's fine. For example, you probably won't have any trouble picking up, not picking up like ammo, for example. You could just not use ammo. We'll talk about that later. Or you could not go near the ammo. But energy is a concern. You'll need to make sure that you can get enough energy elsewise, Xeneric or something, if you want to convert those pickups into bombs. I want those. Yes, there we go, as an example. Look at all that damage. Anyway. Pretty spicy, right? Look at all those. Oof, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So you get the idea. That's how it works. That's what it does. Someone's car alarm was going off outside. So now we can talk about Helminth abilities. It will probably rapidly make sense now why people were recommending Greedy Pull, Mag's pull ability, and the Greedy Pull augment. You could pull the loot to where you want the mines, like into a choke point and all into a big group, such that when enemies step on that one spot, they just poof, and the whole map, gets wiped out. Also, you can use normal, like pull normally, to pull enemies onto the mines. Definitely good stuff. That lets you concentrate the damage. And I also saw No You recommended Protea's Dispenser to make a concentrated pile of potential damage. I feel like it's sort of the same idea, but it's a good idea. I think my concern with Dispensary is that I don't feel, well, if you have a lot of strength, so you will often make double pickups. I kind of like that, but I feel like it does the same job that Greedy Pull would do, and Greedy Pull also gives you a pull. Additionally, Dispensary would have the benefit of giving you the energy, but the idea is to not take them. So I don't know. I like the thinking of Dispensary, but I think I prefer the idea of pull in this case. The other thing is that I feel like Xeneric is really going to pull a lot of weight here. Being able to get energy regeneration while completely ignoring your energy pickups is a big deal for this build, I think. So let's say it was Greedy Pull. Here's my big concern. I already wasn't that happy with the survivability of this build, so to use our Helminth ability to get a combo with Explosive Ledgermane means I am just gonna be, I mean, and I'm talking about me, by the way, like you might be like, well, you said that stuff about shield gating and rolling guard and auger reach. Is it really a big deal to just survive with Eclipse and Hall of Mirrors? No, but I, Zandy, do not like it. So an objection I have is that I'm gonna replace Prism with Pull, right? But I want a survivability ability, kind of, you know? I guess we'll just try it. I don't know. But yeah, that's a thing. Also, we would need the augment, and I don't currently have a space for it that isn't auger reach. I guess you don't need max range. You could get rolling guard, but then anyway, you could remove some strength. I guess this isn't doing like the most work in the world, but I don't know. It's that part isn't my favorite, but for the most part, I would say yeah, pull is a cool idea. I'm not opposed to exploring more, like, again, I think dispensary is a perfectly good suggestion. I think pull might be stronger in this case. But yeah, I think another thing to compare would be if you were going to use survivability instead, what might you pick? Gloom is sort of always an option. I like this because if you're surviving based on enemies usually not hitting you, and then you've got your shield gate coming back, if they do, this makes them attack more slowly. So that seems like it would have good synergy with that. This ability is just very good as well. The lifesteal doesn't really do a lot here, I don't think. Yeah. But of course, if we're going to compare, you know, like, why not just pick pull? We should just look at what are the other options that are similar. Asymptomatic, you said, Lycat's Hunt comes to mind as a new to this year tech, though it's mostly an ongoing way to generate orbs on a coin flip rather than instantaneous. Ooh, I didn't think of Lycat's Hunt. That's clever. This ability gives you a chance, limited to 50% when it's a Helminth ability, that enemies you kill with melee drop health orbs or energy orbs, depending on how you kill them. Couple of thoughts. First of all, because it's melee, you will likely pick up the energy orbs instantly. But the health orbs, and that is just when you melee, you can get a melee headshot, but the melee, that'll be health orbs, so you could conceivably not pick those up. But it might be hard. Do note that if you have if your sentinel has that one mod. Sorry, my throat's getting all yucked up. Let's look at oh man, and you kind of want Death Cube too, but anyway, synth fiber. If a health orb would benefit you, even if you have full health, you can still pick it up. Which means if you, when you have synth fiber equipped, you can generally pick them up. I believe that's how it still works. It used to work like that. So keep that in mind. That might be a reason to not use it, or I don't use it on things that aren't sentinels generally. But that's interesting. Loot abilities, basically. You could, for a similar reason, you could bring Petrify. You could bring Petrify with its Orgaze augment and simply make more loot to turn into mines. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's tricky because one thing I don't like about the pull idea is that I think in many cases the mines would be fine where they were. After all, they are where enemies are, which means they're where enemies spawn. So why do they need to be somewhere else? Then again, having enemies spawn in a kind of remote corner of the map, their loot's not doing much over there, you know. And the range of pull with greedy pull can be quite large, sure, but it's not huge. You only get half the range mag does, so even with max range, it's going to be like 35 meters or whatever, you know. Not bad, but not huge, you know, to the point that I'm not sure. Like, it's a very fun idea. I'm not convinced it would really do that much, though. It feels like a good thing to try. So I like the idea of Lycath's Hunt. Another reason I like this is because it wouldn't take an augment slot. That's nice. And earlier it was mentioned, Pistol Whip, you said that Mirage's Hall of Mirrors, they all use melee weapons. Do they all damage with melee weapons? They all use melee weapons. Do they all do damage with their melee weapons? That seems good. Yeah, bring... I don't know what exactly, but probably just a heavy attack weapon is fine because the raw damage will be... Or alternatively, they all do damage with melee, so what about gunblades? Pingers, what are you doing there? It's crazy. Will all 4 of them shoot gunblade blasts? Because that sounds incredible. That's what I want in my life. Oh, it's gonna hit such a big area. Ooh. Ooh. What are you doing there? Yeah, let's take a look. Non-gunblade gunblade, i.e. Chlorophyll, was my new recommendation. Yeah, Chlorophyll is another good idea. I think the problem with the normal gunblades, like the Redeemer and stuff, is they are just pellets, so they will likely miss enemies. But I would imagine... Okay, it's very difficult to see if that's, like, actually hitting... I don't know if that's actually hitting anyone. I guess we need to look for the damage numbers. Okay, we're gonna need more help than that, jeez. But if we can figure out if they duplicate any melee weapon effect, that could be useful. There could be lots of combos with that. Yeah, it's really not clear. It could just be that they're like missing or hitting. I don't know. Me? Maybe the Chlorophyll, it'll be easier to see. It looks badass. That kind of looks like they are shooting. Yeah, it does kind of look like they're all shooting. Let me make the energy 2-tone so it's a little easier to see. We'll do like green for the other one or something. I'm pretty sure I see more than 3, don't you think? There are at least extra effects on screen. Right. That's exactly how I was feeling. Like, I'm not going to conclude this segment by saying it does work or it doesn't work. I'm going to conclude this segment by saying, look at all the particle effects, like, and the enemies are sure dead. Yeah, I don't know. Seems pretty dope, it would be my feedback. Now, the other benefit of doing this, of course, is that going with asymptomatic suggestion of using Lycath's Hunt, you can kill an enemy with a melee weapon without being in melee range of them. So you won't pick up, you know, the health orb, the energy orb, because you can be like way over here and kill them with a melee weapon, right? Very nice, very spicy. I like that idea as well because using earlier I suggested Petrify and Orgaze to make more loot. And I think what I don't like about that is that this group of mods is going to make it frustrating to use Petrify. It's going to cost so much energy, and your whole thing is to not pick up the loot. A great thing about Orgaze is you make more loot, you get more loot with more strength from Orgaze. So if you have bad efficiency, you make more energy. So you could just pick it up and refund your energy. But it can be very energy intensive, and it's not like Lycat's Hunt where you just get a buff that makes you make more loot for a while. You have to recast it over and over and over, so you really want that energy refund. I think you would really struggle to keep Orgaze going with the mods that you would want if you wanted Explosive Ledgermane to be good. Whereas Lycat's Hunt is just a buff. It just works. TM. Now, eagle-eyed of you in the audience may have noticed that I do not have Lycat's Hunt in my Helminth. But I don't remember at all, actually, if I own another Lycath. Another Varuna. Anyway, you know, I do not. But where there's a will, there's a way. Where do you even get Varuna? The Warframe Partner Program sometimes spoils me this way, where the Warframe Creator Program, I get normal variants of frames for free as review copies, which means I don't always know where you get them normally. I usually do. For example, Citron, I've been playing the mode you get Citron from a lot, even though I already have her, because I want the Arcanes from it. But Varuna, I just don't know where you get Conjunction Survival. Let's just see what I have for those. Probably don't have any of them. I have none of them. But yeah, I'm definitely down to try that when I get Varuna in my Helminth. Again, I think that's a great idea. The duration is 20 seconds too. Increase the duration of Lycat's Hunt by killing enemies affected by 5 or more status effects. It would likely be good to put a weapon in the loadout specifically for that, like to do that thing. Because on Varuna, of course, there's abilities that will enable that. On Mirage here, that might be a bit more challenging. Now, it will be a little easier because the mines themselves do a lot of different status effects, right? And they have an 100% status chance. So if enemies, if you can touch the enemy and kill them with your melee weapon after the mines go off, they will already have a lot of status effects on them. So that's good. That's nice. Yeah, this seems like a really sweet idea. And it's a 50% chance whenever you kill any enemy, as long as you shoot them with a gunblade, basically. And you'll probably hit their head. A lot of the times, weapons like the Chorophel and the Stropha that fire a big energy wave don't have a headshot multiplier in Warframe, but that doesn't necessarily mean they can't score a headshot. Usually they still get the headshot, they just don't get more damage. This is similar to the Archiplasmor. It can still trigger things that trigger when you get a headshot, it just doesn't do any more damage when it gets a headshot. You can still run mods that trigger when you get a headshot. And it's very, very easy to trigger them. That's why it doesn't do more damage. What a chonk. I remember this guy. We've had some good times, Archiplasmor and I. It's been a while, though. So yeah, I'm going to say Lycat's Hunt, but don't have Varuna subsumed yet. So we might try Greedy Pull while we're at it. But yeah, I think that's a really cool idea. I think we'll talk about weapons more when I get back from the break, but basically my excitement comes mostly from weapons that have crazy alternate fires that normally I would be a little bit worried about that they wouldn't be impactful enough to feel good. So the Trumna, for example. I'll show you what I mean. I actually did get a great shot off with it when I was demonstrating the mines, but we'll do it a bit more. And other people have mentioned that things like glaives, you get multiple glaive throws. Like the wolf sledge you could throw multiple wolf sledges. The Quasis, the fan with the knife throw on Mirage, that's a cool idea as well. We could definitely try those. Let's, I haven't used the Quasis in forever. Let me just refresh my memory. Yeah, this thing. What a weird weapon. Anyway, yeah, I'm totally down to try something like the Quasis. Pumper Snub, if you want to share the build you have for it, or like what the gist of it is. It doesn't have to be the exact build, but I would love to hear about it. I'm gonna break now, and we'll talk about that stuff when we get back. Cool. See, the Mirage stream is going great. Empathetic, you said, it seems I've arrived late. I hope we haven't written off Prism or its augments yet. I don't know about written off. I don't think it's amazing. I earlier mentioned it as, you know, having the Prism follow you, and you've got a laser beam turret on your shoulder. If you move very quickly, that can be very effective at killing lots of lower level enemies really fast. Besides that, I think it's a frustrating ability in some ways. It charges you a lot of energy. The duration on Prism's augment is very low. It can have some interesting combinations when you want to go fast. That's a very aggro ability in that way. And I would be very interested to hear what you have to suggest, but I admit we haven't been talking about it that much. Let me... Oh boy, Chezacrate. Yeah, I don't know, Pistol Whip. We'll talk about companions as well. But we'll do peripheral stuff and play this loadout a little before talking about some others after the break. I just want to thank a few folks for supporting the show first. Down here, Zelvaris, Wesky, and Red Drone. Zelvaris and Wesky, you actually got gifted a tier 2 sub by Pingers. Thank you very much for your generosity, Pingers. I have a system set up that automatically gives you roles on my Discord when you are a tier 1 or a tier 2 subscriber. And the tier 2 sub means you get to do a parlay video. So if you would like one of those, you should be automatically granted the permissions on Discord. Zelvaris and Wesky, if you're on my Discord, you'll automatically get access to that area. If it doesn't work, feel free to DM me and let me know. I'll set it up. And yeah, you can submit a prompt and I'll make you a little half-hour or so personal podcast about whatever you like. And Red Drone, thank you for the sub as well, for the Prime sub. I really appreciate the support. This is how I get paid, so it really means a lot. It's very encouraging. Thank you. And thanks to all the new follows. There's been a lot of new people lately. We had a very successful, I felt, stream after a raid from the official Warframe Twitch channel, Prime Time, on Thursday, like 2 Thursdays ago. And it's always exciting when I get those, every half a year or so, as a way to kind of test how far I've come. How well can I make an impression on people? I don't stream the way a lot of people do. I don't get the 15,000 people in my stream and go, whoa, there's 1 million people. Not that there's necessarily anything wrong with doing that. Just that, I don't know, man, like everybody does that. There's tons of that if you want it. And I don't want to do it. I want to be myself. So I don't really feel like there's anything. The world's only going to be better if we have, another different thing, right? And it's always exciting to see how well I can sell that, because on the surface, right, what I'm doing seems like less energy initially. It seems like, well, isn't this just a boring version of that other thing? I hope that you, if you're watching the stream, don't think that's true, but it's not meant to be, all about the hype. That's not me. I don't know. I'm a pretty quiet person in my personal life. iPatch Notes, thank you very much for the Varuna copy. That's awfully timely. I appreciate it. We're definitely going to submit that to the Helminth right now, and it won't be ready for this stream, but I sure will use it when it is. Again, yeah, there's nothing wrong with the way that some other people do it. I just feel like that is what basically everybody else does, and it's not, if I did it, that would not be real. I would be acting it. Isn't it better to just do something different? I don't know. Obviously, it goes a little further than that. I think there are many, many community running benefits, for example. I think there's a lot of benefits beyond just that it's like that's not my personality. That's not the only reason I don't do that, but yeah, just that I've always it is in some cases a liability. The reason a lot of people act that way is because it brings them success, right? Not because so many of them that is how they earnestly want to do the thing. So Eddie Stardust, welcome back. You said if you want to fiddle with it now, I can happily sponsor 50 plat for speeding up the consumption of Varuna. Can you do that? Okay, we're putting back the ship again. This is the most false starts for a break we've ever had. Can you do that? You can do that. This platinum can't be traded, so let me use this platinum for it. I didn't know you could do that. Cool, thank you. Yeah, no, we'll totally put that on right now. Like that's on, get it in there. Put it in my body. And in this case, I'm going to replace Prism. But again, empathetic, that doesn't mean we can't talk more about Prism later. Just, that's definitely where we're going to feel the sped. I feel the spood. Thank you, Ace. Very cool. Wow, Helminth is, they're hungry. They're very hungry. Nom nom nom. Glorious. Yes, we're totally trying that out. Okay, for real this time, for realios this time, we're actually doing the break. I'll talk to y'all in a few. Hello and welcome back to my Twitch ARRchive. What the heck? Okay. Hello and welcome back to my Twitch ARRchive Parley. This is the part of the show where I take a quick breather, which I seem to be in need of right now. But no, I'm past Sandy here and I'm on duty to entertain you while my present self hits the restroom and gets a little bit of water. Grab yourself a snack, a beverage, take a stretch. Let's enjoy answering this question from Space Leonidas with Space Tendinitis. That's a quality name. You asked, do you think Digital Extremes does, or should, design Warframe abilities around 300 first? Ability stats are hard or soft capped around 300%, for in essence like 200% from mods and such. So abilities could be designed with very high thresholds in mind from the ideation phase. Some abilities in the live game feel anemic or claustrophobic, even at the highest levels of investment. Looking at you, Rest and Rage. Let's say design around 300% as the topic. I don't think that they should do this. I don't think it's a terrible idea. I just think it's not as good as what I wish was always the case. Ideally, I think the fantasy of Warframe is that you get to experiment. You know, you get to fiddle around with the different combinations of stats for an ability. In my mind, for Warframe's modding system to feel meaningful, like for it to really matter that you can mod abilities, three things basically have to be true, maybe only two. One, there should be at least two different stats that are not trivially easy to mod for at the same time, which the ability is very good if you mod for. Two, the ability should have some meaningful relationship to having a stat be in the negative, because a lot of the mods that give you a lot of a stat give you some negative to another stat, you know, corrupted mods, basically. Narrow-minded gives you a lot of duration, but you lose a bunch of range. If that doesn't matter, then, well, it's not going to be a very interesting, you know, those are kind of connected as well, right? Like for there to be a cost to building an ability up really high, it has to matter that you didn't build up other stats really high. So basically they just need to be affected by a lot of stats. And three, the ability should be useful without any mods, like with no mods. There are Warframes that I think are like this, where there's a kind of a meaningful reason to build two-ish builds, and the Warframe's abilities do something with no mods. But a lot of frames don't check any of those boxes. Many frames don't really check any of those boxes. A really good example for me of a frame that I don't think has, by the way, this might mean the frame is totally fine. I just don't think that they really, like, modding is just a chore for them. It's not really that interesting, at least not to me. Revenant comes to mind. Revenant gets way too much from strength, and a lot of his abilities don't feel like they really do anything if you don't have a lot of strength on them. Nor are you making much of a trade-off. Like, building duration on Revenant doesn't do enough, in my opinion. And in a lot of ways, you can get, have your cake and eat it too. You can build a bunch of strength, and then, also build a little efficiency, let's say, and you're kind of good. That's just not why is there a choice about what mods to put on, That feels like a Warframe where maybe they did design around modding to that high value, but didn't provide any reason to not do that, so no, I think the way you worded this, I'm also a little confused, because you're saying I think abilities in the game feel anemic or claustrophobic even if the highest levels of investment, meaning that they should be more powerful with less investment, not designed around a lot of investment. But you mean that even with a lot of investment, they don't feel good, which I guess I agree with. Mostly I agree with the concept. I guess I want to go even further than what you're suggesting. And I think there are frames that do that. There are frames that the base frame with no mods is good, and there's reasons to mod a variety of stuff. Octavia is another weird example. Base Octavia with no mods is pretty good. The abilities do things, they're useful, and Octavia benefits from pretty much every stat. I just feel like there's not really much of a punishment for just modding everything. So not enough opportunity cost is a big problem there. But I do feel like some Warframes do that. I just feel like not as many as it would be good. And it's hard. I mean, if you have 50 plus Warframes, they all have 4 abilities. Anyway, a really good question, though. If you want to submit a question to segments like this, you can do so using a link I'm posting in chat right now. The idea is that link's tied to this day of the week, so the next time I stream on a Thursday, in this case, I'll answer that question. For now, on with the show. Welcome back. Let's try our glorious new device, Lycath's Hunt, to spawn more loot drops for Mirage's explosive ledger main. Just as a review, the idea here is that if we use a melee weapon that has a ranged attack, we can make enemies killed by melee attacks drop health orbs 50% of the time, without being in melee range, meaning we will not pick up the health orb or energy orb if we get a headshot. We need to make sure to do something about the duration, or just be prepared to recast the ability a lot, but that's fine, that's doable. Pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, this ability does have one way in which it has bad synergy with this build, and that's that it isn't affected by either of the stats that we stacked up, and it is negatively affected by the 2 stats that we have reduced. The duration is not that negative, but it does have negative effects here. And negative efficiency isn't good for this ability either. In theory, if we can get the duration per kill thing going, it doesn't matter, but the high strength and range don't do anything for this ability. Not the end of the world. Can I put... Let's briefly talk about Corrosive Projection, actually. The thought here is that a lot of the damage from Explosive Ledger Main is not going to be getting through armor very effectively, and it will often damage enemies for the first time. You and your allies haven't damaged them. This is one of the few abilities that likely will damage enemies before you and your allies get to them. So making that electricity damage, that cold damage, reducing the armor enemies have by 18% could be a pretty substantial damage increase for those hits. That's worth thinking about. But the strength would also just make them do more damage. I think if the goal is only to make Explosive Ledger Main do more damage, I think Corrosive Projection is likely better, but I just thought I'd mention it. Increasing the damage by for like a tiny bit more is probably not going to do much. So yeah, we can talk about a few peripherals just to get the loadout set up, and then we'll get out there. My throat is very, very dry, sore. Neither, really. I don't know what's going on. It's got a little tickle. And of course, as always, I brought the old stream beverage corner has returned. This is my homemade kombucha, which I left a cinnamon stick in for about a week. It tastes like delicious peach pie. But yeah, my throat's really messed up. Sorry. No, I mean, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm sorry you're not getting as much entertainment as you can, but that does feel a little better. Just needed something acidic to slake that thirst. I don't have that much else to say about this. It's really good. You should make your own kombucha. It seems intimidating, but it's like the easiest thing ever. It's so easy. If you can make tea, that's like, and that tastes good, that is significantly more complicated than making your own kombucha, I think. So good. And at least where I live, the amount of kombucha you get would be so expensive if you didn't make it yourself. So good. Yeah, you're probably gonna have to buy a kit, so the startup cost is kind of there, but I think the benefits really check out. It's so easy, and you basically just get infinite kombucha for almost free after the startup cost. Um, it's so good. Like you gotta make kombucha. You should go buy some and try it first. But I made this out of an aged tea, a pu'er tea, raw pu'er. This one was it's called a mansa. It means they're aged in a wild environment rather than generally they're open air aged in high humidity, but like in a warehouse or something. Not that different to how you might age whiskey in some ways. I mean, it's tea leaves, so that's different, but you get the point. But these teas are aged in like a rotting tree stump, for example, rather than in a warehouse. So they're super funky tasting. The kombucha aging process, fermentation process, really mellowed it out quite a bit. It has this peachy, really sweet flavor, despite the SCOBY having eaten most of the sugar. Again, it tastes kind of peachy, very, very unexpected flavor. It doesn't really taste like tea or how this tea tasted. This tea already didn't taste like tea, and it doesn't taste like that tea didn't taste like tea. Tea. And then, yeah, you just put stuff in them to flavor. Oh boy. To flavor them very easily. There's something in my throat for sure. Anyway, whatever, it's fine. We're good. Companions. We briefly talked about the Chesa Kubro before. The reason for that was retrieve. This says Kubro has a 45% chance to scavenge additional loot from a fallen enemy or containers within 30 meters every 10 seconds. In theory, all of my yes. This means you get more loot. It's basically Necros, but a companion, right? In practice, I don't care. It's Necros' Desecrate one time every 10 seconds. Necros' Desecrate already has a percent chance around this amount to make more loot. I just don't think that's good enough. I think this is such a small amount of that effect, it's basically nothing. Although, generally the competition that ability faces is the Smedikavat, because Charm has an effect that occasionally doubles all your loot. Over time, I'm absolutely convinced that this is more loot than the Chesa. But remember, on this build, we're actually looking for the loot drops to be on the ground, not in our inventory. So doubling the loot we pick up doesn't really do the job. We want more loot on the dirt. So in theory, I would say that is a use case for the way that the Chessa is making more loot. It's just so little, I don't think that matters in practice. If we can't think of literally anything else, then that's fine. But it would still be competing with something like you could just run the Nautilus and it would occasionally group enemies up. That has no real synergy with this build, but it's just good, you know? In fact, I actually think this is kind of bad with some of the weapons you might want to use on this build, but it's just a good ability in general, right? Some kind of defensive effect, something Taxon. This feels like a place where maybe you should use Taxon if you're going to rely heavily on your shield gate to keep you alive, periodically getting it back. And then if you don't get hurt for a while, you stockpile a lot of overshields. That seems very good. Like, that seems great. Scroll of Wisdom, you said maybe that Kuber that has Dig. That's a great suggestion. On the surface, Dig makes you a ton of loot, right? There's a couple of concerns I have. The first one is that it digs up what you need. Dig is optimized to dig up resources that you would need, which means you'll immediately consume them, unless you like see it digging and then run away, I guess. Which you could do. But I think in practice you often won't. You will immediately consume, you know, most of the loot this would make. The other problem is that this dig is quite unreliable in combat. You have to be not moving and have no available targets, more or less. So while fighting, this basically won't happen. There are some ways around that. You could fiddle with it. I don't think this is a bad idea, but I don't think it will work in practice. So what are we on at this point? Is there any other obscure thing that makes more? I don't know. I'm into a little bit of shield. Pistol Whip, you said the single digit returns from molecular conversion at the high end makes it a write-off for me. You just mean because if it does very little damage to enemies, it won't make you much shield. I think the thing about this is that just getting any shield gives you a shield gate, so it can still, like, a good amount of the time you would get hit, you're waiting for your shields to come back, and then if it does this, it could easily save you without you really doing anything. So I'm not sure that's the end of the world, but it isn't a huge amount of overshields. Does this indeed give you less overshields when you do less damage? I thought it just gave you a flat 200. It says convert 200 damage into shields, but I think you just get 200 shields. Pistol Whip, I definitely agree that Taxon isn't offering a ton here. But I don't think it has much competition either. Like, there's just not, so far, I don't think we found a single thing that I'm convinced really does anything. You could Pistol Whip, of course, convert 200 damage to shields in English means the amount of damage you deal is what you get as shields. But I'm clarifying that my understanding is that it says that, but like many things in Warframe, it does not actually do that. I'll see what the wiki has to say, but my memory is that it was different. I'm just explaining why I was confused. The wiki does say the amount of shields it created is calculated after taking into account damage modifiers. I must just not have noticed. But anyway, I still don't think this is a bad idea, simply because getting any amount of shield, even as Pistol Whip says, probably single digits at higher levels, gives you back your shield gate. But that is worth noting. I didn't know it worked that way, so yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a strong contender then. Something like, I know this is never an exciting recommendation, but something like Viral Quills. It says, launches 6 quills at enemies, they deal viral damage with 40% status chance, spores get spread if they're affected by viral, blah blah blah. It basically just gives everyone viral. I think this is good in this build because it means the mines will often damage enemies when they have viral on them. That should be a pretty meaningful damage increase. Now, this is always good, pretty much. This companion is well known for being like basically always good. But I do think people overreact about that a little. There's a lot of times when this companion comes up where I don't really see why you wouldn't just bring viral to the mission anyway. You know, you might be using weapons where I'm not convinced there's any benefit to having the viral already there, you know. You could always build corrosive or something against only Grenier, but a lot of the time I would have built viral anyway, and your allies will probably build viral anyway. I think that this is at its strongest then, not that it's bad otherwise, but I'm excited about recommending it when it uniquely gives you a damage increase to things you normally wouldn't have been able to increase the damage of as easily. And it does do that here, so yeah, maybe I'll take that. Yeah, again, Pistol, I completely agree that if Taxon is making so little overshield for this build, it probably just doesn't matter. But I had not yet found a single companion that I felt did basically anything relevant to the build. Definitely when you compare to the elephant in the room, yeah, like there's really no reason I wouldn't want to take this. If you're not familiar, this companion is also more or less immortal, and even has a way to revive you if you are about to die. Pretty much a perfect fit for this build. Weapons. Scroll of Wisdom, you said, will you make it so you prevent yourself from picking up the Lycath Hunt health orbs? Our plan for that is to use a ranged melee weapon. And I guess I'll try the Quasis with a, like, whatever heavy attack build. Sure. I mentioned Trumna earlier, or basically any weapon with an alternate fire, but somebody mentioned a weapon I don't think I have. I do have it, yes, Juno Mummox Tenet Tetra. This weapon, if I remember correctly, not only has an alternate fire, but it also has the bouncy thing from the Tetra. That means you can do this stuff. Let me just refresh my memory. Okay, shots bounce 6 times and travel further. While aiming, you get more projectile speed, but these are both Exilus mods. This weapon is out of control. Anyway, I mean, yes, like of course we're doing this. The bouncing, but do I care about projectile speed if it's not going to bounce? Blah. Well, I can't put either of them on anyway, so I guess I'll this here. I don't remember what it does have an explosive on its like the alternate fire, that's what it's called. Final thing. I mentioned before, Lycath's Hunt, we can get the duration by having 5 or more status effects. Enemies get killed with 5 or more status effects. I have a lot of questions about this. Number 1, if Explosive Ledgermane kills an enemy or hurts an enemy that then dies, and when they die, they have 5 or more status effects, do we get the duration increase from this? You see what I mean? The large radius of this effect may make it very easy to get this effect, provided there's enough status going around. And remember, these explosions themselves do like a variety of statuses, as well as the fact that we've added in probably viral. Like most enemies will like more or less have viral. So it might be very easy. What we're going to try, therefore, is just do nothing to enable this and see what happens. Otherwise, like you could just we can get a secondary weapon that we mod specifically to enable this, and then it should be easy. The ability is focused on melee a little bit, so it might be you need to kill them with your weapon or with a melee weapon or something. But I don't know. I don't think so. So, oh, sorry. Earlier somebody said there's arcane slots empty. Why? I just generally try to leave things empty if we don't have anything specific there to keep track of what is available on the build. Unfortunately, you can't leave a focus empty, but we are using Xeneric for energy, so we don't have to go get the health orbs, so we can turn them into bombs. Like right now, we haven't used the secondary slot for anything, and I want to know that because there's some stuff we might need, like we might want that status output. So I want to leave it blank. Same thing with the arcanes. I'm not really sure what I want in those slots yet. I will say quickly that I'm pretty confident that some strength will, like if you had Molt augmented, this seems like a very good place for that. And there's also that one duration mod. This seems pretty good. It's not much, but the duration affects Hall of Mirrors, and also Lekat's Hunt. So yeah, I mean, it's a duration mod in the Warframe slot. Probably just power stats, basically. So yeah, we're gonna do Elite Sanctuary Onslaught as an example, or we could do like defense, mobile defense, survival. I said before, you know, I think the bad places for this build would be missions like Exterminate, because you keep moving. You know, the mines probably will get left behind. The new enemies are always in front of you where you haven't been before. Not great for this build. And also the open world. Having concentrated choke points will make the mines actually go off. Because remember, although they have a very huge explosion radius, enemies have to basically step on them to trigger them. So I think Elite Sanctuary Onslaught is a great place, and one reason I mention this is because I don't think that many builds do anything particularly well tailored to this game mode. The spam on Twitch has gotten like a little out of hand lately. So we'll split here and do some a little bit of a demo. But yeah, if we have time, I would like to drop in and do like a little bit of mobile defense or something. Empathetic, we did talk earlier about how Explosive Ledgermane does a damage type based on what you convert. It's not random. Health orbs do heat damage. And I would say broadly, I would agree that heat damage is maybe the type of damage you want it to do. So yeah, definitely a powerful aspect of making specifically more loot that is like health orbs. That matters too. Pretty much everything that we've thought of would at least make more health orbs, but like if we were to have used Orgaze, that doesn't make particularly more health orbs. So that's a thought. That's a lot of knives. That is several knives. Now what I'm going to do is I've just cast Explosive Ledgermane, and I'm going to sit here and see. Yeah. It does work if the mines make the kill. So I just saw, you can't see in the corner because it's really small, but if you have Explosive Ledgermane mines up, and you activate Lekat's Hunt, and the mines get kill or probably even an assist on enemies that have like a lot of status effects, that does refresh the duration. That totally works. Oh, that's so sick. Ooh, so the Lekat's Hunt duration is basically free. That doesn't require any maintaining at all. That's awesome. Wow. Oh, look at how far away that... It's so good. Look at all that damage to these enemies so far away. You have to recast like every 2 seconds, but I mean, like, what do you want from me here, you know? That's pretty good. Wow. Yeah, the Lekat's hunting is genius. Asymptomatic, that was so clever. That has weirdly like so much synergy with this build. Look at all those kills. My word. Yeah, that's awesome. What a weird place for that ability to be good. Oh, it's so perfect. Wow. I mean, that's blinding, of course. Like, I gotta do something about that. By the way, just remember that Lekat's Hunt doesn't do anything unless you get melee or headshot kills. So even though it maintains automatically basically all the time, we found out. Remember that that doesn't do anything unless you get melee or headshot kills. So you might as well spend your time, while everything is just kind of going on its own, running around, you know, melee attacking people with some weapon that has a heavy attack that does range attacks. Seems like the strongest straightforward way to go. That's awesome. That's so cool. Now again, a big thing that that you should keep in mind is that this build is doing damage to enemies so far away. So in ESO, like, that's good because there's lots of enemies all over the place. But keep in mind that if you're in if you're in like a defense or a mobile defense or something, having enemies be taking damage at choke points coming into the defense objective is awesome. They get a bunch of cold or whatever, and they're like way over there. That's great. So we're gonna quickly do like a mobile defense or something. I also didn't use the Tenet Tetra at all. Eddie, that's not entirely true. There's often not much to say about the flavor win thing because it's kind of subjective, but I do think the fans on Mirage as an aesthetic is very, very cool. I agree. And I think it's a great choice as well. The Gunblade thing is not at all bad. I think the thing I like about this is that one of the strengths of the clones is that they don't do like so much damage, but they get the status output. So having a lot of little hits, like from the throwing knives, and then they all force slash, is a particularly good fit, and it makes it more likely that you'll kill enemies with 5 or more status effects, which is a nice bonus. This seems like a weapon that is more uniquely good here as well, which, like, if you want to just use the Chorophel, it will work. You know, you can, but yeah, I'm totally down for it being the Colossus. With that in mind, I'm gonna put a form on it. Whew. Yes, we'll do one more thing, and then do a little roundup of other ideas. Let's do mobile defense, but let's really push it. Oh, does that not stay there? That's frustrating. But yeah. Please let there be people. Yeah. This definitely may be a place for the black energy color discussion. Toward the end, when we briefly touch on fashion, I want to come back to that as well. This is definitely a frame where I care about the energy color for my eyeballs in a way I might not as much on other frames. And yeah, we'll talk about that prism thing as well. Mirage also has some visual effects that force a certain color, like you can't recolor the, you know, sort of vibrant, like rainbow effect. I guess it's always when they're rainbow effects, but... By the way, here's just like what the Tetra shooting looks like currently. See, kind of unsatisfyingly low fire rate. But you got the triple bomb. I mean, that's pretty nice. Oh, glorious. See how big a radius that has? It hit this. Ooh, that's nice. Oh, look at that. But yeah, it's definitely important to show this type of build in a sort of normal mission, because I think that's the biggest risk these kinds of builds run, is that they do a very cool and unique thing, but that just isn't ever good in Warframe. And that hasn't been my experience. I've often found defense to be a pretty good use case for explosive ledger main, but I didn't have this great version of it then, so we definitely need to play that a little bit. I'm going to try harder to include gameplay examples in these as well. I think that a couple of things. First of all, as we do the Build Lab streams in games other than Warframe, I do think that the difficulty of the testing is somewhat specific to Warframe, so it's kind of awkward. Like when we do them in Genshin Impact, it's pretty easy to demonstrate most common builds, at least a little bit. In a way it kind of isn't in Warframe. You can jump into combat a little more easily in that game. So in some ways I think it's kind of easier. And I want them all to have examples of that if like that's what we're doing, is we have examples of that. Second of all, I think it is valuable. Generally popping into a mission for 5-10 minutes, it's not going to change that much about the stream. We still get to focus on discussion and stuff. It doesn't take away from that much, even if that's sort of what we're here for, what's unique about this. I just think it is helpful. You know, it's a change of pace too. And the third thing is that it's a great way to confirm the efficacy of things. I know a mistake I've made a lot of times is I get too excited about what you're all saying in chat, and because the stream isn't that gameplay focused, I don't play it for long enough in the stream that we spend a lot of time talking about it before checking if it's like a thing that works. That's partially on all of you, to be fair. Telling me lots of things that you don't know if they work isn't, you know, that as if they work isn't good, of course. But obviously it's my responsibility running the show to just not, like, I should just learn to either ignore you or check right away. When possible, it's good to check right away. So I've said before that I have a fear in games like Warframe, but not just Warframe, that the stream will devolve into testing. If you just test every little thing, people don't understand when they ask for their one thing that I can't just start doing that. You know what I mean? Like I'd be spending the whole time checking stuff. And I also think that there's a big game design problem if a game involves so much stuff that you need to check that you constantly have cause to just be checking if things even work. Like that is itself a problem, I think. That being said, trying to show a little bit of the mines popping off now, by the way. Note that in this less dense environment, I'm having trouble getting Lycaths on top. Anyway, so blinding, I know. Lendl, you said the bitrate dies so bad. It does. My eyes also just like, ugh. So yeah, you definitely gotta, not only the energy color on Mirage, but also on your melee weapon at the very least. If not, you know, maybe you go even further than that, right? Ooh, that's so bad. All right. But yeah, you can see definitely with this level of enemy density and a full squad, it's not doing much. You need enough loot, enough enemies dying. It's quite difficult to maintain Lycath's hunt with how it is at the moment. Missions are a little more enclosed, so it can be a little bit more difficult to not just take the loot, which does mean you get less mines. You can still see a lot of something making trouble for someone way over there. It can also be a little bit difficult to know when to recast. Something I try to do is you can see the affinity numbers popping up, so I know enemies died over there. If you haven't recast since a bunch of those popped up, then you can watch that to try to, you know, like that's when you could recast. So like probably if I do this. Finally note, this is probably obvious, but it's your loot. And so, you know, I haven't been over there yet. So even though my ally has, my copy of the loot that I'm going to turn into the mines is still there. So, you know, it will still like do the thing. And as you can see, there are mines here. That's just the blinding gem. Yeah, it looks like not that much stuff died here. Anyway, so you can see, I mean, mobile defense missions are already like, it might be of minimal effort. Defense or survival, where loot can really pile up in a location, might be a better place. But you can see how it does still lock down big chunks of the map where enemies are trying to walk through a hallway to catch up to the objective, and they just get hit by a ton of mines and get a huge amount of cold or something, you know. You can still see tons of damage going off, even though I'm nowhere near there. So I have had the experience that this can be pretty good in like defense or survival. I just want to demonstrate a little bit of that. I do think mobile defense is maybe a little worse. Ooh. Cool, so we'll briefly go over a few little peripheral things. Empathetic mentioned a prism build that they wanted to share. You said for the prism thing, I combo prism guard and infested mobility, the parkour increasing Helminth ability, with a high duration build and balanced other stats. As long as the enemy density and lighting line up decently well, prism can scale its damage very high. Yes, this is a weird part of Prism that you'll forgive me, chat, I intentionally didn't get into because, for the sake of time. Prism does have some tomfoolery going on with its damage scaling based on light level. If it is bright, Prism does more damage. Now, it doesn't say anything like this anywhere on the ability, but it can do more damage in brighter light. Eclipse does not increase Prism's damage, but Empathetic says you can use it to know where the light is. Definitely if you play a build like that a lot, sure, yeah, like learning what parts of the tile are light could, meaningfully improve your effectiveness. But yeah, because Prism Guard, which makes the prism stay with you, has a very short duration, you're probably going to max out the duration. Probably mostly I'll start there, and then yeah, you said balanced other stats, which sounds logical to me. So let's just look at, we could slap that together in like 5 seconds. So let's do that. I still want range, but I want damage, so that's tricky. Don't really want transient fortitude. Remember, it doesn't actually have no drain because it's because I have Xenaricon. Blind Rage might be fine because the drain has been lowered a lot by all this duration. So that might be okay. And then this, you could do range. I don't want to have no range. It might be fine because if you're running through a mission, like the default range might just be enough. Yeah, it might be okay. Although it's not the default range. I lost a bunch of range. Okay. Yeah, probably I'll take overextended in there. And then I think ideally I would want growing power, but it's awkward with my aura slot, whatever. And then let's look at infested mobility. Should have stayed up there. If you're not familiar, this increases your sprint speed and parkour velocity. The sprint speed increase is very large, but the parkour velocity is larger in that parkour velocity is just crazy. And they're affected by strength. This makes you absolutely fly through missions if you just bullet jump a lot. The duration is kind of low, but we do have max duration, so it will last a good amount of time. This will make you pretty darn quick. I guess sleight of hand wouldn't be that good in the types of missions where you would be likely to do that. Just get replacement eyeball surgery, SMH my head. We will definitely be SMHing my eye insurance during the the fashion part of this stream. I just wanted to quickly demonstrate how fast you will go if you bring like a parkour velocity mod like lightning dash as well, and then cast infested mobility. We'll just briefly play this so you can see it. I think I would want energize, and you could probably get away with that one duration mod, one duration arcane, because you probably won't take any damage while playing this type of build. Okay, we'll just quickly, we could probably quickly do it. Shoot for the stars, let's try to fit it in. we'll not go on the steel path and just go some like short exterminate mission and go very fast. Just to show what it looks like. You can see the bullet jumps are pretty substantial. And this laser ball will just instantly kill anything that enters your field of vision, and you could just go. You could just keep going. Is it a little distracting? Does it make it a little difficult to see the laser ball on your shoulder? Perhaps. Would a sentinel not do a good amount of this? No, it would, but where did my ball go? Where are my balls? Okay, anyway, you get the point. Did I not put Prism Guard, the augment, in this build into the augment slot I have? That's terrible, because what I was gonna say is something you should consider, probably still Zeneric, but I would really like casting speed. You can see that even though Prism Guard makes it go on your shoulder, you still have to cast Prism, which is long as hell. I would highly recommend bringing Natural Talent. I would have recommended casting speed from Madurai Focus as well, but I think the energy from Zeneric is likely pretty relevant to this build. So anyway, that's you can see what that's like. Still pretty cool. Again, I felt like it was quick enough to kind of bash that together that we might as well. But I don't have too much else to say. Prism does still drain energy over time, even with the Prism Guard augment. Yep, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but one of the problems with Prism is that it drains a lot of energy over time. If the duration gets worse, the drain per second gets worse, and it also lasts less time, so you have to pay the initial cost more often to keep it going, which is frustrating. So yeah, we'll just do a few more quick notes. Empathetic, you said, I use Prime Flow to make more use of Energize. Indeed, I generally tell people to avoid mods like Flow because they don't give you more energy, they just let you hold more energy. But if you have a powerful way to generate energy, they may very well gain you energy because you wouldn't have been able to hold all of what you would make. This seems like a decent place for Prime Flow. It's also like if you're generating enough energy doing the thing you're doing, that you can maintain what you're doing, but not that consistently. Having Prime Flow to let you hold that energy so you can tide yourself over is good. You have to recast Prism Guard anyway, though, so I'm not sure it matters that much in this case, but I can see why you would use this. Again, Arcane Energize more or less is a good enough reason to consider this, sure. You wouldn't lose very much duration. And yeah, if you decide you don't need Zeneric, then you should probably swap to Madurai for the cast speed, because Prism Guard is so slow. We're talking about power transfer. In fact, I'll leave it there. It's quite possible that would work for me too. Like in more enemy dense missions, I could imagine that working. Ace, you said, been in and out of the stream. Did Archon mods come up? Continuity, bonus corrosive, and stretch energy gain while not channeling are the main ones that come to mind. Sure, that's clever. For the let's go back to this. Many of the Archon mods might be relevant here because the Warframe is inflicting toxin, electricity, cold, and heat. So any of them, like Archon Continuity that inflicts corrosive, you're only going to get like a few corrosive status effects, but that's, I mean, it's still better than nothing. Archon Vitality would make the heat damage, you'd get 2 heat status effects. In this case, I'm not sure that matters that much. You're not going to get more armor reduction, and the damage increase from 2 heat damage over time effects, I don't think is going to be that meaningful compared to 1. The biggest problem I have with these is that they are not mods that I would already have wanted on the build. Like, they largely, the health and the duration would be, I would have to spend a whole mod slot just for the Archon effect. I don't really want the normal mod effect. However, stretch though. I don't own this one, so we gotta go. We're gonna go look at it. But stretch though. That's not who sells stretch. This is the mod stretch, and it also says abilities that do electricity damage. Restore 2 energy per second over 5 seconds. If this means that you refresh a 2 energy regen per second buff every time an ability does electricity damage, not just anytime you cast an ability that could do it, like provided that this works with Explosive Ledgermane, let's just assume it does, this is a slam dunk for this build, absolutely. Let's get it and find out. That's amazing. While we're here, let's just quickly look at Archon Flow. Says enemies killed by cold abilities have a 10% chance to drop an energy orb. Dropping more energy orbs sounds good, but if the cold damage has to get the killing blow, that's not entirely clear. Warframe often uses different wording for this stuff, so this could just mean enemies that have taken cold damage and are killed, or it could mean they have to be killed by the cold ability, not clear. They have a 10% chance to drop an energy orb with a 10-second cooldown. I don't think it's that amazing. I also wouldn't have wanted to use the mod Flow in the Explosive Ledgermane build, so I think this one is pretty forgettable. But Stretch is an absolute slam dunk in this build. That's insane. It gives you basically free energy regen all the time automatically. That's incredible. So yeah, let's put that on there. That's amazing. Am I gonna have space? Am I gonna have a room? Yeah. Look at that. Chat, you know I would never not level up a mod in this situation. I would never not commit maximum overdrive on a mod like this for this one build. Ooh. Oh, my credits are gonzo. But my energy is overclocked. That's incredible. Ace, thank you very much for sneaking that in at the end. Should have gotten the turbo. And again, I do think that you could consider continuity. I don't think this is the worst idea. The benefit of this is that yeah, it is only 1 or 2 corrosive procs a lot of the time, but that initial chunk of armor will really help a lot. I don't think, in particular, if you were to add this, I don't think I would cut corrosive projection. It's still only going to be like 1 or 2 corrosive a lot of the time. I don't know, neither do I think this is that amazing. I just feel like the build as it is currently, duration just doesn't do that much. I could definitely see someone cutting Rolling Guard for this, though. I'm just not sure that person's me. Yeah, probably a lot of you will cut Rolling Guard for this, but yeah. And the duration isn't bad. You can maintain Eclipse and Hall of Mirrors more easily. I don't think it's a big deal, though. Again, I mean, you do have to cast these a lot, but they're basically free now because you have so much energy from Stretch, so I'm not sure the duration really does anything, and at that point it just gives you a few corrosive procs. If enemies are dying, I don't know. And yeah, like there are cases where it would make Lycath's Hunt better when it's bad. It's not a bad point. And you could replace something like Transient Fortitude instead. I just think the raw damage on the mines is actually kind of modest at high levels. Again, I think the real test for this is, can you do something like Elite Sanctuary Onslaught and this contributes like meaningful damage? Can this actually kill enemies if they only get hit by like 3 or 4 mines? And level 80, 90, 100 armored enemies, it kind of can't unless you have a good amount of damage. So That's just been my experience. I think the damage really does make a difference. But I could definitely see, yeah, like Transient Fortitude or maybe Rolling Guard. Um, However, a final note, Ace, you said toxin damage comes from affinity orbs, which, how common are those? Right. Well, that's a gotcha. Indeed, I believe it's health is heat, uh, and then energy orbs are electricity, while ammo is cold. And then affinity orbs are what give you toxin, which means you basically never get toxin. So that's the real gotcha. Yeah, maybe I don't know. Good catch. Asymptomatic, you're all over it with Archon Stretch. This is gas for this build. Okay, we gotta go, which means we need to talk about the fashion. And we really do need to talk about the fashion because, good lord, your eyes will be yeetus deletus if you do not make the fashion shadow Yeezus. I'm gonna start by just making them both absolutely completely black to remind myself. But yeah, I definitely think this is a frame where what you're doing isn't visually clear anyway, so I'm not really that worried about just making the visual effects totally black. The other reason I'm going to do this is because I wanted to show you, there are those rainbow or uncolorable effects from Mirage's abilities. Which, yeah, I wanted to demonstrate those. A couple words about Mirage in general then. Even the normal Mirage, I believe, has the knee pads. That's a prime detail. Oh no, it's a normal Mirage detail. The normal Mirage's knee pads. I like these. I think they're cool. I think you can create a multi-plated effect. In this case, I'm using the Grax skin, which has similar textures to the Saturn 6 plates. You can see that it kind of looks like they're the same down there. But yeah, I like that personally. Let's just look at Mirage Prime quickly to show you how different that is from this. This is going to be something crazy. Whoa. Okay, but yeah, let's look at this. Quite different, right? Really quite different. I think that Mirage is one of those where the silhouette has kind of a signature component, like those knee pads, that changes when you like go to the Prime. It's not really the same iconic design. The helmet still has the kind of jester cap thing, but for the most part, you see what I mean? Like there is a kind of difference in the silhouette. Knee build craft compared to Mesa's elbow build craft. Sure. But yeah, overall, I actually really like the knee pads. I think they're quite distinct to Mirage. I think armor is a big deal for this frame. I think that the default Mirage anyway already looks like she has armor, so adding to it I think is flavorful. You can see here my shoulder pads are kind of covering up what are already shoulder pads, but I like that. I personally think that the gigantic armor plates are a sort of signature thing to Mirage's appearance. Sandana's, yeah, I think you got a lot of room. It's not very clippy. I have had some weird problems with, let me try to show you. On capes is where it kept happening. Nah, not like that. Yeah. Yeah, so look at that. And then you've also got, I feel like the developers are probably not that happy that I'm pointing this out, but but there you go. They would sort of, that one doesn't really snag. That one doesn't really. Well, maybe it's not that many of them. That's good. But it's also those, these guys get stuck back there. In Mission, I've had these equipped for a while in the past, so I don't think it's that bad. But anyway, some of them get stuck. I don't know. I'm enjoying this right now because I think it matches the design language of the body and the armor plates, but yeah, who knows for how long. Let's just very quickly look at the visual effects and see how unblinding they are now. And that's the show. That was pretty good, right? Something I want to remind myself of, a few closing thoughts actually while we do this. I think we're going to stop doing these in alphabetical order. This probably means that we're going to do them more often, if anything. I think I'm going to do them when I'm a little ready. I've been playing around with Warframe builds more organically lately, which means that I often have a Warframe that I was playing with, I'm excited to talk about, ready. And so why wait? You know, I'll have more to add in that case, which I think makes the streams a little better. It means we get into trying something sooner. If that sounds okay, then I think that's what we're going to do. I just don't think that doing them in alphabetical order really does anything anymore. And it's always had some consequences. It was just for lack of a better way to do it. So yeah, that's one thing. And I want to remind myself to say at the beginning of next stream that, you know, I know sometimes people have misunderstood these streams and the archives they become on YouTube as being kind of like, why do you need to talk for 2 hours just to establish, you know, that you're going to use explosive ledger main, you know? And of course, the reason we did it this way is because you all are here, presumably, hopefully, because you wanted to think about the logic behind doing these things. Hopefully you won't make this exact build, or if you do, it's because you'll think, oh wow, I do want those, you know, things. It's meant to be that you can make your own thing, not just that I could easily explain why I'm using just these things, you know? And I wouldn't have thought of ideas this good either. We don't need enemies. So yeah, I just wanted to remind myself to say at the beginning of the next stream that our intention here is to help people think about ideas, just inviting people to think, you know, do you want these things? Do you like that stuff? I think could make a meaningful difference. So I wanna really deliberately do that. Remind myself to do that. I want you all to remind me to do that, if I could ask. So yeah. Anyway, the dark energy colors. You can see you still get that kind of rainbow. That just looks like nothing. You see these look gray, but you can still see the rainbow effects. Like those are not colorable. That was the main thing. And now you can hopefully see that the Quasis is not a blinding experience. You can't really see where the knives go, but you can't aim this anyway, really. I mean, you can, but you should just point generally at the enemies and you'll be fine, you know? That looks kind of cool. That looks kind of neat, all black. Anyway, that's all I wanted to show you. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. That was a good one. I liked that one. Scroll of Wisdom, you said there is also value in being forced into the next Warframe in line. I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the benefits of doing them in alphabetical order is that the frames that nobody is asking for will get covered eventually, you know? But as long as I commit to doing all of them, I don't think it's a problem. And again, it puts us in situations like, I just don't think there's a ton to say about Necros before I play more Necros. And Neja, I don't have any Forma on, but I'll probably put some on in the next year. Why not just cover him then? I've got a good amount to say about Nova and Revenant right now. And Saren, but not very much to say about Nyx right now, but I probably will play her more in the next year. Revenant Prime, okay. So I don't know. I think that fitting them in a somewhat different order seems good. And I really want to focus a little bit more on cases where I'm making a decision that you probably wouldn't, just because I think they make better recommendations. A very simple, quick example is that on Revenant, I'm probably going to keep Reeve and remove Enthrall for a Helminth ability, even though I personally don't think Reeve is really the greatest ability, because it makes me go really fast on my build, and I just like that. It's not that practical. You get to cast Enthrall for free with Mesmer Skin, but I just don't. I just don't. Like, you probably should, but I just don't. And I think that type of more targeted or more niche or specific to the person building is more helpful. Like that, it just does more. And it's something that I need to learn to embrace. I'm kind of trying to add back in to my coverage, because I totally unintentionally haven't really focused on that much so far. And it's like the most useful thing. So, yeah. that. That's really all I have to say. Yeah, again, Ace, I definitely feel the pain about like Mirage's defensive profile, defensive methods. I think the reason I like this build, which maybe I didn't make so clear, is that Explosive Ledgermane, as you've seen, hits enemies from so far away that they're not even in the same room as you. So the result is that you generally don't get shot. You might have noticed that in that footage, some of which was against higher level enemies, we were in a squad, but I didn't die. Like it didn't really feature me going down a bunch, even though this build is a piece of wet tissue paper, because generally you just affect enemies by enough bad things or things that kill them before they get to you. They're just not near you. There are few builds that affect enemies from so far away. In fact, in terms of raw distance, there may be no build that affects enemies from so far away. So in some ways that makes up for Mirage's tissue paper-like exterior. And, you know, auger set stuff, rolling guard, does do a lot to help as well. So yeah, I hope that was valuable in some way. Again, I'm not necessarily a Mirage enjoyer, but I kind of like everything, so I ain't picky, and I think this is kind of cool. Yeah, I'm glad we got to briefly show the weird Prism Guard speed build thing as well. Can be interesting if you want to clear out low-level missions quickly. Cool, thanks for the show, folks. Looking forward to the next one. If you enjoyed this, we normally stream this way this time every week. If you would like to come back for one, I'd love to have you back. You can post a question that I'll answer during the break during the next Thursday stream down there. And we also stream Fridays and Mondays, so looking forward to seeing you then. This Friday we'll probably play something. I don't know what yet, but we're probably not going to do just discussion. I'm not really sure. We'll probably play something. And then this Monday we're going to talk about Mika in Genshin Impact. See you then.